Hi, I'm JIllaine Smith with Fourth Quadrant Partners. Have you ever been in a conversation where someone asks a question and suddenly you can just feel the energy shift? You can almost see minds engaging. Some questions just open up everyone's thinking to some new possibility. Questions like this can act as an invitation. In this video, I want to talk about a principle of emergent learning that we call asking powerful questions. But first, let's set the stage. Emergent learning is about retraining the way we think about how we do our work in the social sector and how we think about what it means to learn. We've mapped out a series of principles that represent this way of thinking. These principles connect to the tools and practices of emergent learning. The tools and practices can help us to realize these principles, but you and your colleagues and partners can benefit from reflecting on these principles without ever using the specific tools or practices of emergent learning. So back to today's principle, asking powerful questions. As I said earlier, one question asked at just the right time can open up and invite people's thinking. In her first week of training in emergent learning, after a meeting that didn't go as planned, one of our participants simply asked, "So, what do we think caused our results?" One simple question from the after action review. She described how generative that one question became. Rather than the group quickly shifting attention to the next topic on their agenda, she described how it allowed them to dig deeper, to get to some bigger insights about how they framed the meeting, and how their lack of clarity about ultimate aims got the group bogged down. Another participant just started asking BAR questions as her team was preparing for an important board meeting. What are we trying to accomplish? What would success look like? What do we think might be challenging? She observed that people seemed to be hungry for this kind of engagement, that asking these questions increased their buy-in and ownership for the goals of the meeting. It also clarified a few things that they hadn't thought about yet. These are just a couple of hundreds of examples of how one question can shift a group's ability to think and learn together. Why are questions so important to emergent learning? Emergent learning itself came to be from asking one simple question over and over. What will it take for us to learn together around the complex work we do, as well as each of us is able to learn individually? Constantly asking this question over and over has allowed us to deepen our own understanding about how we learn together, what gets in the way, and basically everything we've discovered that we talk about in videos like this one. In order to shift our thinking in the social sector, we need to break out of old habits. We need to have a way to gracefully challenge ourselves and our colleagues in the moment to think differently, to upend power structures that reinforce the status quo. We need to invite some new voices, not just into the room to sit at the back and politely answer questions, but to be an active part of the conversation. There's a big difference between starting something, a project, a strategic plan, even a meeting design, with a list of goals handed down from the most senior person in the room, versus starting by asking everyone to talk about this question. What are we really trying to accomplish here? To give everyone in the room a chance to weigh in, to make sure we're all on the same page about what success is going to look like. So asking one powerful question is just as much what emergent learning is about as holding an emergent learning table conversation. One of the things that makes this principle so powerful is that practitioners can just ask an emergent learning question in any interaction when it's needed, without having to name it, without having to convince anyone to do an emergent learning process. Asking powerful questions takes practice. It is a muscle we build. Just like we need to learn how to skillfully facilitate a before or after action review or an emergent learning table conversation, asking powerful questions calls on us to become skillful at listening to groups as they think together and make decisions and take action, to notice where and how a group's thinking process is getting stuck, how fuzzy language may be creating a false sense of alignment around a shared goal, or how unexpressed thinking is affecting a group's ability to be inclusive or to learn together. Over time, this becomes second nature to emergent learning practitioners. When we find ourselves in a meeting that is meandering or stuck in tape loops and not getting to resolution, it just becomes natural to ask, wait, can we reground ourselves about what it is we're trying to accomplish here? Emergent learning practitioners even start to recognize one another. We've heard stories from members of our community who have never met coming up to each other and asking, "Are you an emergent learning practitioner?" because they heard them ask a particular kind of question in a particular way. Questions like, what are we trying to accomplish here? And what will that help us accomplish? Or what will that make possible? Help establish or strengthen line of sight to a larger goal. Another principle of emergent learning. It can help a team make sure they are all on the same page. What will it take questions, like the one I asked earlier, are what we call a framing question. Questions like this invite people to bring their own experience and creativity to addressing a goal or a challenge. The what will it take format helps keep a conversation forward-focused and action-oriented. There's a big difference between saying, "We are here today to talk about juvenile justice," and asking, what will it take to make sure that young people who find themselves in the justice system are given the opportunity to become productive members of the community? It's an invitation to shift from a top-down, expert-centric conversation to a conversation that invites all voices to the table as experts in equal measure. Two more principles of emergent learning. Let's consider some other powerful questions to ask. Sometimes, while a team is planning something, one or more questions from the before action review just seem important to ask. What do we think success will look like? Are there any challenges we should be looking out for? We've done things like this in the past. What have we learned that might help us succeed here? Likewise, if a team is doing a quick debrief on something that just happened, sometimes it will just feel important to ask an after action review question. If we think back on what we were trying to accomplish, did we actually get there? Is there anything about what we did or how we did it that contributed to where we got to that we should notice? Or one of our favorite questions, if we could turn the clock back, what would we do the same or differently? What can we learn from this experience? If a group feels stuck, sometimes asking for counterexamples can show a way forward. Well, have we ever succeeded in doing something like this in the past? If the jargon people are using feels like it might be keeping the conversation too abstract, or that people might not agree or even understand what these big words mean, just asking, what does that look like to you? Can you share an example? Can help ground an overly abstract, intellectualized conversation. The right question, asked at the right time, can create a breakthrough. It can help a group strengthen their line of sight, to tease apart fuzzy language, to connect its past wisdom and invite ideas from everyone in the room. And it can move from abstract ideas to concrete actions. It can help you be deliberate about testing out your thinking in action. When teams begin to become comfortable with emergent learning questions, when they understand that the goal of asking questions like this is not to challenge anyone, but to understand, then it creates the conditions for learning and adaptation. Conversations become more generative and lead to deeper and better thinking. People feel like it's okay to bring their experiences and ideas to the table. Over time, teams become less afraid of exploring disappointing results because they begin to realize that there's something they can learn from it that can actually be energizing. Powerful questions unleash energy, creativity, and agency. Try it yourself. Go into your next meeting with these questions in mind and ask just one question and see what happens.